Welcome back to the channel The Coin Empire, where we explore the fascinating world of rare coins, hidden treasures, and the incredible stories behind ordinary pocket change that can sometimes be worth life-changing amounts of money. And today's story is one that always captures the imagination of collectors and treasure hunters because we are talking about a mysterious and potentially valuable coin that many people have overlooked for decades: the 1969 1-cent coin, a simple copper penny that most people would normally spend without a second thought, but which in certain extremely rare situations and under extraordinary circumstances could theoretically become one of the most valuable pennies ever discovered, with rumors among collectors suggesting that a rare example could reach an astonishing value of up to $95 million if the right combination of mint mistakes, preservation, and historical significance were discovered on a single coin. And while that number may sound unbelievable, it reflects the intense excitement that surrounds mint errors and the endless possibilities that exist when something goes wrong during the coin production process. Because every coin begins its life inside a mint where massive machines strike metal blanks with incredible pressure using engraved dies that contain the design of the coin. And although the process is designed to be precise and consistent, millions of coins are produced every day, and sometimes small mistakes occur that create unusual and unique pieces. And when collectors discover these mistakes decades later, those coins can become extremely valuable because they are rare, unusual, and impossible to reproduce. And the 1969 penny is particularly interesting because it was produced during a time when the United States Mint was rapidly increasing production to meet the demand for coins in circulation. Meaning billions of pennies were struck that year, yet among those billions there is always the possibility that a few coins slipped through the system carrying errors that no one noticed at the time. And when collectors today search through old jars of pennies or bank rolls, they often dream about finding one of these hidden treasures, especially coins from the late 1960s which were produced using traditional bronze composition containing 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, giving them the classic warm reddish color that collectors love. But beyond the metal composition, what truly makes a coin valuable are the rare anomalies created during the minting process. And one of the most famous types of mint error that could potentially exist on a 1969 penny is the double die error, which occurs when the design on the die itself is misaligned during the hubbing process, causing the letters, numbers, and design elements to appear doubled on the finished coin. And this doubling is not simply the result of wear or damage, but an actual duplication of the design that was struck into the coin at the moment of minting, creating a dramatic and unmistakable visual effect that collectors search for using magnifying glasses and microscopes. And if a strong double die were discovered on a 1969 penny with clear doubling in the date, the word Liberty, and the national motto, it could instantly transform a common 1-cent coin into a legendary rarity that collectors around the world would compete to own. But double dies are only one possibility, because there are many other minting mistakes that could elevate the value of a coin to astonishing levels. For example, an off-center strike occurs when the blank planchet is not perfectly aligned with the dies during the strike, causing part of the design to be missing while the rest is shifted toward the edge. And depending on how dramatic the misalignment is, an off-center coin can become highly collectible, especially if the full date and mint mark are still visible. And imagine discovering a 1969 penny struck 50% off-center with a crisp, uncirculated surface preserved for decades in a forgotten coin jar. Such a piece would immediately draw the attention of collectors who specialize in mint errors because it would represent a rare combination of visual appeal and historical interest. And another fascinating possibility involves a wrong planchet error, where a coin is struck on a metal blank intended for a completely different denomination, or even a different coin series altogether. And while such errors are extremely rare, they do occur when planchets become mixed during the production process, resulting in coins that appear dramatically different in color, weight, and size from what collectors expect. And a 1969 penny accidentally struck on a dime planchet, or a foreign coin blank, would instantly become a headline-making discovery because it would represent a mistake that should never have happened yet somehow escaped the strict quality controls of the mint. And collectors would eagerly examine such a coin, measuring its weight and diameter to confirm that it truly was struck on the wrong metal blank. But beyond these dramatic errors, there are also more subtle varieties that can dramatically increase the value of a coin. including repunched mint marks which occur when the small letter indicating the mint location is punched into the die more than once at slightly different angles, creating a shadow-like duplication of the mint mark. And during the 1960s, mint marks were still applied by hand, which means there was always the possibility of misalignment. And if a 1969 D penny displayed a clearly repunched mint mark with multiple impressions of the letter D visible under magnification, it could attract strong interest from collectors who specialize in mint mark varieties. And then there are die cracks and die breaks, which occur when the metal dies themselves begin to wear out or fracture after striking thousands of coins, leaving raised lines or unusual shapes on the coins they produce. And sometimes these breaks grow so large that they create dramatic raised blobs or cuts on the edge of the coin where metal flows into the damaged area of the die, and collectors often find these features fascinating because they reveal the moment when the minting equipment was nearing the end of its usable life. And a large dramatic cut on a 1969 D penny could transform an otherwise common coin into a conversation piece that era collectors would eagerly pursue. And we also cannot forget about die clashes, which occur when the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet between them, leaving faint impressions of the opposite design on each die. And when coins are later struck using those damaged dies, they may display ghostly outlines of design elements from the other side of the coin appearing where they should not be, creating a mysterious layered effect that experienced collectors recognize instantly. And while many die clash coins exist, only a few display strong enough impressions to become highly valuable, which is why collectors carefully study each coin under bright light, searching for those subtle clues. And another possibility that excites collectors is the broad strike error, where the retaining collar that normally holds the coin in shape during the strike fails to engage properly, allowing the metal to spread outward beyond its normal diameter, creating a coin with a flat and expanded appearance, and missing reeded edge or rim detail. And a 1969 D penny struck as a dramatic broad strike with beautiful uncirculated luster would certainly capture attention at any coin show or auction. And then there are double strikes, where a coin is struck more than once by the dies, sometimes with a slight rotation between strikes, resulting in overlapping images that create a surreal, almost artistic appearance. And if such a coin retained a strong date and mint mark, it could become a centerpiece of any era coin collection. And when collectors imagine the possibility of combining several of these eras on a single coin, the excitement grows even stronger, because the rarer the combination, the more unique the coin becomes. For example, imagine a 1969 D penny that was first struck slightly off-center, and then struck again, creating visible doubling of the design along with an expanded rim from a partial broad strike effect. Such a coin would be unlike almost anything ever seen, and collectors might compete fiercely for the chance to own it. And this is where the idea of extraordinary valuation sometimes begins to emerge, because the coin market is driven not only by rarity, but also by the story behind the coin. And when a piece captures the imagination of the collecting community, it can achieve prices far beyond what most people would expect. Especially if the coin becomes widely known through media coverage, collector forums, and major auction events. And condition also plays a crucial role, because a coin preserved in pristine mint state condition with full red copper color can be dramatically more valuable than the same coin showing wear or discoloration. And many collectors dream about discovering an old roll of pennies stored away for decades, where a rare era coin has remained untouched since the day it left the mint, its surfaces still glowing with the original luster that reflects light and brilliant waves across the design of Abraham Lincoln on the front and the wheat or memorial design on the back, depending on the year's style. Next, 1981 1-cent coin. Today we are diving into an incredible story about a simple-looking penny that most people would never think twice about, the 1981 1-cent United States coin, a coin that millions of people have held in their hands without realizing that under extremely rare circumstances and with the right combination of minting mistakes, unique features, and historical significance, a single example could potentially be valued as high as $90 million in the collector's market. And while that number sounds almost impossible, it perfectly illustrates how powerful the world of rare coin collecting can be when rarity, demand, and extraordinary mint eras come together in a single coin that collectors dream about discovering. Because every coin begins its life at the United States Mint, where massive industrial presses strike metal blanks known as planchets using engraved steel dies that contain the design of the coin. And these machines operate with tremendous pressure and speed, producing thousands of coins every minute, yet despite the precision of the process, mistakes can and do happen. And when those mistakes slip through the mint's quality control system, they sometimes create coins that are completely different from the billions of normal coins produced that same year. And those unusual pieces are what collectors call mint errors. And in the case of the 1981 penny, there are several fascinating possibilities that could transform an ordinary cent into one of the most talked about coins in the world if the right error combination were discovered. And to understand why collectors pay so much attention to pennies like this, it helps to remember that the 1-cent coin is one of the most widely produced coins in American history, meaning billions were struck during the early 1980s. But when you have billions of coins produced, the chances increase that a few rare mistakes might slip through unnoticed. And those mistakes can remain hidden in circulation for decades before someone finally discovers them. And when that happens, the coin suddenly becomes the center of attention for collectors, dealers, and auction houses around the world. And one of the most exciting possibilities that could make a 1981 penny extraordinarily valuable is the presence of a dramatic double die error, which occurs when the design on the die used to strike the coin becomes misaligned during the manufacturing process, causing the letters, numbers, and design elements to appear doubled when the coin is struck. And this doubling can sometimes be very strong, making the inscriptions like the date 1981, the word liberty, and the phrase "In God We Trust" appear as though they were printed twice, slightly offset from each other. And collectors consider strong double die coins extremely desirable because the error occurs on the die itself, which means every coin struck from that die carries the same distinctive feature, making it a true variety rather than a one-time accident. And if a spectacular double die were discovered on a 1981 penny with bold, easily visible doubling, it could instantly attract worldwide attention among numismatists. But doubling is only one possibility, because there are many other types of minting mistakes that can dramatically increase a coin's value. For example, an off-center strike is another fascinating error that happens when the planchet is not perfectly aligned between the dies during the strike, causing part of the design to be missing, while the rest of the coin appears shifted toward one side. And collectors often search for off-center coins where the date and mint mark are still visible, because those pieces combine visual drama with identifiable information about when and where the coin was made. And imagine finding a 1981 penny struck 40 or 50% off-center with crisp details and original mint luster preserved after decades in storage. Such a coin would be incredibly exciting for error collectors because dramatic off-center strikes are rarely found in pristine condition. And then there are broad strike errors, which occur when the retaining collar that normally shapes the coin fails to hold the planchet in place during the strike, allowing the metal to spread outward beyond its normal diameter, creating a coin that looks wider, flatter, and slightly distorted compared to a regular penny. And when broad strikes occur on high-quality planchets, they can produce coins with beautiful flowing metal patterns along the edges that make them stand out immediately to collectors examining them under magnification. And another possibility that could make a 1981 penny extraordinarily valuable involves the idea of a wrong planchet error, which happens when a coin is accidentally struck on a blank intended for a completely different denomination or even a different type of coin altogether. And although these errors are extremely rare, they have occurred throughout mint history, sometimes producing pennies struck on dime planchets, quarter planchets, or even foreign coin blanks. And such coins instantly capture attention because they often have the wrong color, weight, and diameter compared to normal coins from that series. And collectors carefully measure and weigh these pieces to confirm their authenticity. And if a genuine 1981 penny were discovered struck on an unusual planchet, it could become a legendary rarity almost overnight. But the list of possible minting anomalies does not stop there, because another fascinating feature collectors watch for is the repunched mint mark, a variety that was more common during periods when mint marks were manually punched into the dies rather than incorporated directly into the design. And although by 1981 many mint marks were standardized, there were still opportunities for slight misalignments that could create subtle doubling or shadow-like impressions around the mint mark letter. And these tiny details may seem insignificant to the average person, but to experienced collectors they represent important clues about the minting process and the tools used to create the dies. And another intriguing category of mint errors involves die cracks and die breaks, which occur when the steel dies used to strike coins begin to develop fractures after repeated use, leaving raised lines or unusual shapes on the coins produced by those damaged dies. And sometimes these cracks grow larger over time, eventually forming dramatic features known as cuds, where a portion of the die breaks away completely, allowing metal to fill the missing space during the strike, producing a raised blob along the rim of the coin that collectors can easily see without magnification. And coins with large cuds can become very desirable, especially when the feature is visually striking and well preserved. And then there are die clash errors, which occur when the obverse and reverse dies accidentally strike each other without a planchet between them, leaving faint impressions of the opposite design on each die. And when those dies continue striking coins, the clash marks may appear as ghostly outlines of design elements in unexpected areas of the coin, creating a fascinating layered appearance that collectors love to study. And sometimes these clash marks appear near Lincoln's portrait, or within the memorial design on the reverse, giving the coin a mysterious, almost puzzle-like quality that encourages collectors to examine every detail under bright light and magnification. And another exciting possibility involves double strikes, where a coin is struck more than once by the dies, sometimes with a slight rotation or shift between strikes, resulting in overlapping images of the design that create a dramatic, distorted appearance. And coins like these can look almost like two pennies fused into one design, which makes them extremely eye-catching and collectible. And when collectors imagine a coin combining multiple errors, such as an off-center strike along with a partial double strike, or a die crack intersecting the date, their excitement grows even stronger, because coins with multiple errors are incredibly rare and often unique. And uniqueness is one of the most powerful factors that drives coin values to astonishing levels, because collectors compete intensely for items that may never appear on the market again. And this is where the idea of an extraordinary $90 million valuation begins to capture the imagination, because if a 1981 penny were discovered with a spectacular combination of errors in perfect mint state condition, it could become one of the most famous coins in modern numismatics, attracting global attention from collectors, historians, and investors who understand how rare such discoveries can be. And condition also plays a crucial role in determining value, because copper coins like the 1981 penny can change color over time as they react with air and moisture, and coins that retain their original bright red luster from the day they were struck are far more desirable than coins that have darkened or worn down through circulation. And many collectors dream about opening an old jar of pennies passed down through generations and discovering inside a perfectly preserved coin that has remained untouched since the early 1980s, its surfaces still glowing with that fresh copper shine. Next, 2005 1-cent coin. Today we are exploring one of the most surprising possibilities in modern coin collecting, the mysterious and potentially extremely valuable 2005 1-cent United States coin. A coin that at first glance looks just like any other penny you might find in your wallet or coin jar, yet under very rare circumstances and with the right combination of minting errors, unusual production mistakes, and extraordinary preservation, collectors imagine that a single example could theoretically be valued at as much as $78 million. And while that number might sound unbelievable, it represents the excitement that surrounds the world of mint errors, where a tiny accident during production can transform an ordinary 1-cent coin into one of the most fascinating and sought-after pieces in numismatics. Because every coin begins its journey inside the United States Mint, where massive high-speed presses strike metal blanks known as planchets with enormous force, using engraved dies that carry the design of the coin. And the minting process is incredibly precise, yet it happens at such high speed that millions of coins are produced every day, which means that occasionally small mistakes can occur and slip past quality control, and those mistakes become frozen in metal when the coin is struck, creating unusual varieties and error coins that collectors spend years searching for. And the 2005 penny is particularly interesting because it belongs to the Lincoln Memorial Cent series, which ran for decades and became one of the most widely collected coin types in the world, featuring the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front and the Lincoln Memorial Building on the reverse. And although billions of these coins were produced in 2005, the possibility of rare errors hiding among them keeps collectors examining every penny carefully. because within those billions there may be a few coins that experienced unusual conditions during minting that make them unique and incredibly valuable. And one of the most famous types of mint error that collectors search for is the double die error, which occurs when the design on the die used to strike coins becomes misaligned during the hubbing process, causing parts of the design to appear doubled on the final coin. And when this happens, the letters, numbers, and other details may appear as if they were stamped twice, slightly offset from each other, creating a striking visual effect that can sometimes be seen even without magnification. And if a dramatic double die were discovered on a 2005 penny, especially one with strong doubling in the date, or in the phrase "In God We Trust" or the word liberty, it could quickly become one of the most talked about coins in modern coin collecting, because doubled dies originate from the die itself, which means every coin struck by that die carries the same distinctive feature, making it a genuine variety rather than a one-time accident, and collectors value such coins not only for their rarity but also for the story they tell about the minting process and the moment when the die was created with that unusual characteristic. But doubled dies are only one possibility, because there are many other types of mint errors that could transform a 2005 penny into a legendary discovery. And another dramatic example is the off-center strike, which occurs when the planchet is not perfectly aligned between the dies when the coin is struck, causing the design to be shifted to one side while a blank crescent-shaped area appears on the opposite side where the design was never struck. And coins with off-center strikes can be incredibly eye-catching, especially when the date remains visible, because that allows collectors to identify the exact year of the error while still enjoying the dramatic visual appearance of the misaligned design. And if a 2005 penny were discovered struck 50% off-center with brilliant mint luster and sharp details, it would immediately attract the attention of collectors who specialize in error coins. But another fascinating possibility involves the broad strike error, where the collar that normally surrounds the coin during the strike fails to hold the metal in place, allowing it to expand outward beyond the normal diameter of the coin, producing a penny that appears wider, flatter, and slightly distorted compared to a regular example. And these broad strike coins can sometimes display beautiful flowing metal patterns along the edges that make them instantly recognizable to collectors examining them closely. And then there is the extremely rare and exciting wrong planchet error, which happens when a coin is accidentally struck on a metal blank intended for a completely different denomination, or even a foreign coin. And although this type of mistake is very uncommon, it has happened in the past, and when it does, the resulting coin can look dramatically different from normal examples in terms of color, size, or weight, and collectors will carefully measure and weigh the coin to confirm that it was struck on the wrong planchet. And if a genuine 2005 penny were discovered struck on a dime planchet, or another unusual blank, it could become one of the most famous modern error coins ever found. But the list of possibilities does not end there, because collectors also look for die cracks, which appear as raised lines on the coin caused by fractures forming in the steel dies after striking thousands of coins, and over time these cracks can grow larger, eventually forming dramatic features known as die breaks or cuts, where a portion of the die actually breaks away, allowing metal to fill the missing space and create a raised blob along the edge of the coin. And coins with large cuts often become popular with collectors because the feature is easy to see and adds character to the coin. And another intriguing error is the die clash, which occurs when the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet between them, leaving faint impressions of each design on the opposite die. And when those dies continue to strike coins, the clash marks may appear as ghostly outlines of design elements in unusual areas of the coin, creating a fascinating layered look that collectors enjoy studying under magnification. And then there are double strike errors, where a coin is struck more than once, sometimes with a rotation or shift between strikes, creating overlapping images of the design that produce a surreal, distorted appearance that immediately stands out from normal coins. And when collectors imagine a coin combining several of these features, such as an off-center strike along with a double strike or a dramatic die crack crossing the design, their excitement grows even stronger, because coins with multiple errors are extremely rare and sometimes completely unique. And uniqueness is one of the most powerful drivers of value in the world of coin collecting, because collectors compete intensely for pieces that may never appear on the market again. And when a coin becomes famous for its unusual features, it can attract international attention, leading to fierce bidding whenever it appears at auction. And condition also plays a critical role in determining value because modern pennies like those from 2005 are made primarily of zinc with a thin copper coating, which means they can easily develop spots, discoloration, or wear when circulated for long periods of time. But a coin that has remained untouched in mint state condition with bright original surfaces and no signs of damage can be dramatically more valuable than a worn example, and collectors often dream about discovering such a coin hidden in an old bank roll or a forgotten jar of pennies where it has remained protected for years, its surfaces still shining with the original luster created when it was first struck at the mint. And when coins like this are authenticated and graded by professional grading services, they gain credibility in the market, allowing collectors and investors to confidently compete for ownership. And stories of rare pennies discovered in everyday change continue to inspire people around the world to check their coins more carefully because history has shown that extraordinary discoveries can happen when least expected. And the idea that a humble penny could one day be worth $78 million captures the imagination of collectors and treasure hunters alike because it reminds us that hidden value can exist in the most ordinary places, and the 2005 penny serves as a perfect example of how modern coins can still produce exciting discoveries even in an era of advanced mint technology because no system is completely free from the possibility of human or mechanical error. And each time a coin is struck, there is a small chance that something unusual might happen, creating a piece that stands apart from the billions of normal coins produced that year, and those rare moments become permanent features recorded in metal, allowing collectors decades later to study the coin and piece together the story of how it was made. And this combination of history, mystery, and the thrill of discovery is exactly what makes coin collecting such a fascinating hobby for millions of people around the world. Because every coin has a story, and sometimes that story includes incredible mistakes that transform a 1-cent piece into a treasure worth more than anyone could imagine. Next, 2007 1-cent coin. Today's story is one that sounds almost impossible but has captured the imagination of collectors around the world, because we are talking about a simple-looking 2007 1-cent coin from the United States that in certain extraordinary circumstances could be worth as much as $70 million. And if that sounds unbelievable, just imagine how many people might have passed over this tiny copper-colored coin without realizing the incredible secrets it might hold. Because the truth about rare coins is that sometimes the smallest mistakes during the minting process can transform an ordinary piece of pocket change into a legendary collectible worth a fortune, and the 2007 Lincoln cent is a perfect example of how modern coins can still surprise the collecting world with unexpected errors and unique varieties that make collectors and treasure hunters search their change jars with excitement and curiosity. And to understand why a 2007 penny could reach such an extraordinary value, we first need to talk about the coin itself, because this coin belongs to the long-running Lincoln cent series that began in 1909 and has become one of the most recognizable coins ever produced in the United States, featuring the famous portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front and various designs on the back over the decades. And by the year 2007, the reverse design featured the Lincoln Memorial, which had been used since 1959, meaning that the 2007 penny represents one of the final years before the United States Mint changed the reverse designs in 2009 to celebrate the bicentennial of Lincoln's birth, making coins from this era an interesting part of modern numismatic history. And the letter D on the coin means it was minted in Denver, which is one of the major United States mint facilities responsible for producing billions of coins for circulation every year. So at first glance, the 2007 penny might appear extremely common because millions upon millions were struck and released into everyday commerce. But this is where the story begins to change, because even when a coin is produced in huge numbers, there is always the possibility that a rare minting mistake could occur during the complex and high-speed production process. And these mistakes are exactly what collectors look for because they create unique coins that stand out from the normal versions. And sometimes a single unusual error can transform a coin into something so rare that it becomes the center of attention for collectors across the entire world. And one of the most exciting possibilities for a valuable 2007 penny is the presence of a dramatic double die error, which happens when the coin die used to strike the design receives multiple misaligned impressions during the manufacturing process, causing the letters, numbers, and design elements to appear doubled on the finished coin. And if such a dramatic doubling appeared clearly on a 2007 penny, especially on the date, the word liberty, or the motto, "In God We Trust," it could instantly attract serious collectors because strong double die errors are among the most famous and desirable mint mistakes in coin collecting history, and collectors often compare them to legendary doubled coins from earlier decades that have sold for huge sums of money. So if a spectacular and previously unknown double die variety were discovered on a 2007 penny with extremely clear separation between the doubled elements, it could become one of the most talked about discoveries in modern numismatics, especially if only a few examples were ever found. And rarity is one of the biggest drivers of value in the coin collecting world, because when collectors realize that only a handful of coins exist, they compete fiercely to own one, pushing prices higher and higher over time. But double die errors are not the only possibility that could make a 2007 penny incredibly valuable, because another type of error that excites collectors is the off-center strike, which happens when the coin blank is not properly aligned inside the press when the dies come together, causing part of the design to be missing and leaving a blank crescent-shaped area on the coin. And while small off-center strikes are relatively common in the world of error coins, a dramatic off-center strike where a large portion of the design is missing while the date remains visible can command very high prices, especially if the coin is in pristine condition, and collectors are fascinated by these coins because they provide a glimpse into the minting process and show exactly how something went wrong during production. And in the case of a 2007 penny, an extreme off-center strike combined with other unusual characteristics could make the coin a unique piece that collectors would eagerly pursue at auctions. But perhaps even more exciting is the possibility of a rare transitional or wrong planchet error, which happens when a coin is struck on a metal blank that was intended for a completely different denomination or even a different coin series altogether. And these types of errors are incredibly rare because the minting process is carefully controlled to prevent such mistakes. But every once in a while, a stray planchet from another production line can slip through the system and be struck with the design of the wrong coin, creating a fascinating hybrid that immediately becomes a collector's dream. And imagine discovering a 2007 penny that was accidentally struck on a blank meant for a dime, a foreign coin, or another denomination with a different metal composition. Such a discovery would instantly capture headlines in the coin collecting community because wrong planchet errors combine rarity, curiosity, and historical significance all in one small piece of metal, and collectors are willing to pay enormous sums for coins that represent unique minting accidents. And if such a coin were the only known example, its value could skyrocket to astonishing levels. And this is where the legendary $70 million figure often enters the conversation, because when collectors speculate about the potential value of an unprecedented error coin, they imagine scenarios where wealthy collectors or investors compete to secure ownership of a one-of-a-kind piece of numismatic history. And another possible factor that could elevate the value of a 2007 penny is the presence of a dramatic die crack or cut error where part of the die breaks during the minting process, leaving raised blobs of metal on the coin's surface. And while small die cracks are fairly common, a massive cut that dramatically alters the appearance of the coin could make it instantly recognizable and highly collectible, especially if it forms an unusual shape or covers a large portion of the design. And collectors often give memorable nicknames to coins with distinctive error patterns, which can further increase their popularity and desirability. And the more unique a coin looks, the more likely collectors are to remember it and talk about it, which can help drive demand and value. And in addition to minting errors, the condition of the coin plays a huge role in determining its value, because coins that remain in nearly perfect condition without scratches, wear, or damage are far more desirable than coins that have circulated for years in pockets and cash registers. And professional grading companies carefully examine rare coins and assign them numerical grades that reflect their preservation and quality. And a coin graded at the very top of the scale can command dramatically higher prices than the same coin in average condition. So if a rare 2007 penny with a spectacular mint error were discovered in flawless uncirculated condition, it could become one of the most exciting modern coin discoveries ever made. And stories like this inspire collectors around the world to check their change, because the idea that a fortune could be hiding in a simple jar of pennies is Incredibly exciting, and history has shown that surprising discoveries can still happen even with modern coins because the minting process involves complex machinery and high-speed production that occasionally allows unusual mistakes to escape into circulation. And many collectors enjoy the thrill of the hunt as much as the potential financial reward because searching through rolls of coins from banks or examining pocket change can reveal fascinating varieties and minor errors that tell the story of how each coin was made. And the 2007 penny also attracts attention because it was produced during a time when the United States Mint was using a copper-plated zinc composition for pennies, meaning that the core of the coin is primarily zinc with a thin layer of copper on the surface. And sometimes problems during the plating process can cause bubbles, blisters, or peeling areas that create unusual textures on the coin. And while most plating errors are minor, a dramatic plating failure, combined with other minting issues, could create a truly distinctive coin that collectors find irresistible. And another intriguing possibility is the discovery of a blockage error where one coin becomes stuck to the die and leaves a mirror image impression on the next coin struck, resulting in a fascinating reverse design that looks completely different from a normal coin. And blockage errors are among the most visually striking mint mistakes because they create an almost ghost-like reflection of the design on one side of the coin. Last 1975 1-cent coin. Today we are talking about a coin that many people may have seen countless times without realizing its hidden potential, the 1975 1-cent United States coin. A small copper penny that at first glance appears completely ordinary, yet in the fascinating world of coin collecting there is always the possibility that a single rare example containing unusual minting mistakes and extraordinary characteristics could reach an astonishing value estimated as high as $73 million. And while such a number might sound unbelievable, it perfectly illustrates how the combination of rarity, historical significance, collector demand, and dramatic mint errors can transform a simple 1-cent coin into an object of global fascination among numismatists, collectors, and treasure hunters who spend years searching through rolls of coins hoping to discover something extraordinary. Because every coin begins its journey at the United States Mint, where powerful presses strike blank metal discs called planchets with tremendous force using specially engraved steel dies that carry the design of the coin, and during the 1970s these pennies were produced using a bronze composition containing 95% copper along with small amounts of tin and zinc, giving them the classic warm reddish color that collectors recognize instantly. And although the minting process is designed to be extremely precise, the reality is that billions of coins are produced every year, and when machines operate at such high speeds, there is always a chance that something unexpected might occur during production, and those unexpected events can create mint errors, which are coins that differ from the normal design due to mistakes during the striking process. And these errors are what collectors find so exciting because they represent unique moments when the minting process did not go exactly as planned. And the 1975 penny is especially interesting because it was struck at the Denver Mint during a time of extremely high production when millions upon millions of pennies were being made to keep up with circulation demands, and within such massive production runs even a tiny percentage of mistakes can create rare coins that slip into circulation unnoticed for decades before finally being discovered by collectors carefully examining their change. And one of the most famous types of mint errors that could potentially appear on a 1975 penny is the double die error, which occurs when the die used to strike the coin receives a slightly misaligned impression during the hubbing process, causing parts of the design to appear doubled when coins are struck. And this doubling can affect the date, the word liberty, the phrase "In God We Trust," or other design elements, creating the appearance that the letters and numbers were stamped twice, slightly offset from each other. And collectors consider strong double die coins extremely desirable because the doubling originates from the die itself, meaning every coin struck from that die carries the same distinctive feature, making it a recognized variety rather than a random one-time accident. And if a bold, dramatic double die were discovered on a 1975 penny, especially in pristine mint state condition, it could instantly become one of the most talked about coins among collectors around the world. But double dies are only one possibility because the minting process offers many opportunities for other fascinating mistakes to occur. And another type of error that collectors search for is the off-center strike, which happens when the planchet is not perfectly aligned between the dies at the moment it is struck, causing part of the design to be missing while the rest of the coin appears shifted toward one side. And coins struck significantly off-center often display a blank curved area where the design failed to appear, creating a visually dramatic look that immediately stands out from normal coins. And if a 1975 penny were struck 40 or 50% off-center while still retaining a visible date and mint mark, it would attract tremendous interest among collectors because such coins are rare and visually striking. And another fascinating possibility is the broad strike error, which occurs when the collar that normally surrounds the coin during the strike fails to engage properly, allowing the metal to spread outward beyond its intended diameter, producing a coin that appears wider, flatter, and slightly distorted compared to standard examples. And broad strike coins can display beautiful metal flow patterns along their edges, which make them especially appealing to collectors who appreciate unusual minting artifacts. And then there is the extremely rare wrong planchet error, which happens when a coin is accidentally struck on a blank intended for another denomination or even another country's coinage. And although such errors are very uncommon, they have been documented throughout mint history, and when they occur, they produce coins with unexpected size, weight, or color differences that instantly capture the attention of experts. And imagine discovering a 1975 penny struck on a dime planchet or another unusual metal blank, creating a coin that looks noticeably different from all other pennies produced that year. Such a discovery would quickly become legendary among collectors because it would represent a mistake that should never have happened yet somehow passed through the mint's inspection process and entered circulation, and collectors would carefully measure, weigh, and analyze such a coin to confirm its authenticity before presenting it at auction, where intense competition among buyers could drive the value to astonishing levels. And there are also more subtle minting anomalies that can make coins valuable, such as repunched mint marks, which occur when the mint mark letter is punched into the dime more than once at slightly different positions, creating a shadow-like doubling around the letter. And during earlier periods of coin production, mint marks were added manually, which occasionally led to these interesting varieties that collectors study closely under magnification. And another intriguing category of mint errors involves die cracks, which appear as raised lines on the surface of a coin caused by fractures forming in the steel dies after striking thousands of coins. And as these cracks grow larger, they can eventually form dramatic die breaks known as cuds, where part of the die breaks away, allowing metal to fill the gap during the strike, producing a raised blob along the rim of the coin. And coins with large cuds can be very desirable because they clearly show the effects of a damaged die continuing to strike coins before it was replaced by mint workers. And another fascinating possibility is the die clash error, which occurs when the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet between them, leaving faint impressions of each design on the opposite die. And when coins are later struck with those clashed dies, the resulting coins may display ghostly outlines of design elements in areas where they do not normally appear, creating a mysterious layered look that collectors love to analyze under magnification. And then there are double strike errors, where a coin is struck more than once by the dies, sometimes with a slight shift or rotation between strikes, creating overlapping images of the design that give the coin a surreal, distorted appearance unlike anything seen on a normal coin. And coins with dramatic double strikes often become centerpieces in error coin collections because their unusual appearance immediately captures attention. And when collectors imagine a single coin combining several of these features, such as a strong double die along with an off-center strike, or a dramatic die crack crossing Lincoln's portrait, the excitement grows even stronger because coins with multiple errors are extremely rare and sometimes completely unique. And uniqueness is one of the most powerful factors that drives coin values to incredible heights because collectors compete intensely for items that may never appear on the market again. And if a remarkable 1975 penny were discovered with a spectacular combination of minting anomalies preserved in flawless mint state condition, it could quickly gain worldwide attention and become one of the most famous pennies ever found. And this is where the idea of a $73 million value begins to capture the imagination, because in the world of rare collectibles, extraordinary items can sometimes achieve extraordinary prices when rarity, historical importance, and collector demand align perfectly. And condition also plays a crucial role in determining a coin's value, because copper coins like the 1975 penny can change color over time as they react with air, moisture, and handling, and coins that retain their original bright red mint luster from the day they were struck are far more desirable than coins that have become dull brown through circulation. and collectors often dream about discovering an old roll of pennies stored away for decades where a rare error coin has remained untouched since the day it left the mint, its surfaces still glowing with that vibrant copper shine that reflects light across the design of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse.